ESPN is the one to see. Call 387-2323.
LA filing number 16-7970.
WNXX, Jackson, KNXX, Donaldsonville, and WDGL HD2 Baton Rouge. This hour brought to you by Spencer Callahan Injury Lawyers, LA 21-12681. Offices in Baton Rouge. Now, The Hunt Palmer Show. You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Looking down the middle of the day. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Tuesday. Means we're brought to you by Plucker's Wing Bar. Got Jacob Beck and Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos, and plenty to do over the next 2 hours. Our two Tuesday mainstays are here today, just a little bit out of order. Sharie Aack will be with us 15 minutes from right now. They had an introductory press conference for the newest New Orleans Pelican, DeJounte Murray. We'll talk to Sharie about that, and then a little bit of Saints content as well with Sharie. Glenn West with us at 1:30, talking all things LSU, recruiting, football, maybe a little baseball as well. Can Will Campbell be the number one pick in the draft? ESPN.com thinks so. We'll talk a little bit about his candidacy there at 2 o'clock. SEC Media Days attendees have been announced. We touched briefly on the 3 guys that LSU will be bringing next week, but we'll talk about all of the players that are going to show up on stage there in Dallas coming up in the second hour. And we got some more to get to here, so appreciate you hanging out with us here on this Tuesday. LSU baseball got some really big news earlier today with the commitment out of the transfer portal of Utah Valley infielder Daniel Dickinson. If you've been listening to the show over the last 3 weeks, I have talked about Daniel Dickinson 3 or 4 times. I zeroed in on him as a guy I really thought would be a priority for LSU, and it turns out he was and will be a big part to this transfer portal class. If you haven't heard about Daniel Dickinson, and this is the first you've heard of him, I'll briefly give you a rundown that I think a lot of people are familiar with. But Dickinson hit 367 at Utah Valley this past season. He hit 18 home runs this past season, and he stole 32 bases. He was... You've seen some tweets and some projections that say he could be a first-round talent. I certainly think that's a possibility. Is it some sort of lock? I wouldn't go quite that far. But he had a monster 2 years at Utah Valley. He's been looked at by Team USA and has played some for Team USA. He's spending some time in Cape Cod right now. So a guy whose talent level doesn't scream Utah Valley, but his production was really, really high on. I can tell you... where does he play? What position does he play? He played second base for Utah Valley. Clearly, LSU's got a guy that played second base last year pretty well in Stephen Milam. What I'm told is that LSU feels like Daniel Dickinson can play second base, he can play shortstop, and he can play third. They're going to toss him into a big group of guys that include Stephen Milam, that may include Michael Braswell, that could include Tanner Reeves, could include Mikey Ryan. There are a number of guys they've brought in and that they have returning that they're going to kind of toss in and see who fits where. But Dickinson comes in more productive than all of them at the college level. And I love a lot about this guy's game. I love the fact that he hit for some power. He backspins the baseball pretty well, especially to the pull field. I love the fact that he's really athletic and stole 32 bases, even if the 18 home run power does not translate from Utah Valley to LSU. You still got a guy who professional scouts think is a really good bat-to-ball guy, and he can run when he gets on base. That's another way to create some offense. If you're talking about, well, how do you replace the home runs that Tommy White and Hayden Travinski are moving on from? What if Jared Jones doesn't come back? How do you replace that? Well, you may not be able to replace that many home runs. But all the runs count the same if you can get him to touch home plate. And if he's a guy who does hit some doubles, who does hit for a high average and gets on base at a solid clip and then can steal second base and create some opportunities, I'm good with that. And I think there's a lot of you who are sitting out there going, Jay Johnson doesn't want to do that. He doesn't want to steal. BS. He doesn't want to steal when Dylan Cruz and Tommy White and Gavin Dugas and Cade Beloso are bashing homers all over TD Ameritrade, Charles Schwab as it is now. He doesn't want to steal a lot of bases with those guys in the lineup. You take that kind of pop out of the lineup, he'll find a way to score. They bunted a ton one year at Arizona. I like a guy that's got another tool to his game, and that's speed, and Dickinson absolutely has this. He's in Cape Cod right now, and the numbers are not going to jump off the page to you in Cape Cod. He's only hitting in the mid-200s. In fact, he's hitting 219 in Cape Cod. It's just in 9 games. The stat that a lot of people are pointing to, and there was a tweet that kind of blew up about this, in those 9 games, 41 plate appearances, he only has 1 strikeout. And the reason why that's important is because when you're coming from Utah Valley, it's easy to pile up a ton of numbers and then go up to the Southeastern Conference and it wouldn't translate. Like, that can be something that does happen. But the vast majority of the time, when you go from a lower level league to a higher level league and you can't produce, the strikeouts go up. Can't recognize the pitches quite quickly enough, can't handle the velocity that's so consistent, and you're going to strike out a good bit. That's just the case when you're having trouble adjusting. He's played for Team USA a little bit, and he's gone up to Cape Cod. He's not overmatched. The numbers aren't phenomenal through 9 games, but that's 2 weeks in college baseball. Everybody has a bad 2 weeks. I'm not going to take this sample size from Cape Cod and tell you that he can't adjust. I'm also not going to take his 18 home runs and 367 batting average and plug them right into the SEC. I just think the tools that Daniel Dickinson has are very, very exciting. And I know this for a fact. The LSU staff is ecstatic about this pickup. They really, really, really like the way he swings the bat. They think he fits into this lineup really, really well. And as I start to continue to fill out the lineup and look at where guys may end up, and I start to think about positionally how things look and what the lineup's going to look like. Because if you were listening to the show 3 weeks ago, you heard me say, like, I'm just not sure this looks all that close to what just walked out the door as far as that lineup goes. I think that you're not as good as you were. And as they start to add more and more guys out of the transfer portal, I start to evaluate more and more. And I look at this and I go, okay, Milam's going to play second in this scenario. Okay, Dickinson's going to play third in this scenario. Okay, Michael Braswell's going to play shortstop. Those are my 3 starting infielders. Now, keep in mind, I'm not completely dismissing Tanner Reeves. I'm not dismissing Cale Fountain. I'm not dismissing Luis Hernandez. Like, I realize this, but this is, for the hypothetical, I'm putting 3 guys out there right now, what could be Milam, Braswell, and Dickinson. Do I think that's the best defensive infield I've ever seen? No. Do I think that's got a chance to be a really solid offensive infield? I do. I think Braswell could look exactly like the guy we saw the last 6 weeks for the whole year. I think Milam could be better than he was as a freshman, and I think Dickinson can be really good. Is he Tommy White? No. Could he be really good? Yes. And I'll tell you this. I'm not, as I sit here, completely ready to tell you Jared Jones is not going to come back. Now, that dust is not settled. There's no Derek Curiel, I'm pulling myself out of the draft thing. Okay, let's go. Like, that's not. Jared Jones is very much in the draft, and Jared Jones very well could be picked and paid handsomely and become a pro in the next 3 weeks. But that may not happen. I feel differently about it today than I did 2 weeks ago. Again, it takes one baseball organization to go, okay, that guy's off the board, that guy's off the board. Jones is here. Yeah, look, $800K. All right, look, call it. It take that long for this entire thing to not be the way that it could be. But right now, there's a chance. And so if you add Jared Jones back to that, all of a sudden, I feel like that's a pretty good infield. And then I could potentially add Luis Hernandez's pop as the designated hitter to Jared Jones. And maybe Dickinson and Milam are powerful hitters for their position. Dickinson hits 13 home runs instead of 18. Milam hits 13 home runs instead of 9. Well, you're not completely making up for Tommy White. But then all of a sudden, if I can toss Luis Hernandez in there and he hits 17 or 18, now all of a sudden I'm starting to make a little bit more sense when I'm talking about an elite level baseball team. And I've still got Chris Stanfield in center field, and Ashton Larson in right field, and Josh Pearson in left. And I haven't forgotten about Tanner Reeves or Trevor Schmidt, Derek Curiel, any of the guys they brought in the portal. I'm not going to name every player on the roster, but we're just hitting some high points here. Jake Brown is not a guy I've forgotten about. But it starts to feel a little bit better. They've started to consistently add enough pieces, and we'll have to sweat the draft, and we'll figure out what it looks like from there. But it's starting to feel a little bit better than I did 3 weeks ago. And Jay Johnson and his staff get a ton of credit for that. They've consistently worked and brought guys in for visits and made their pitch. And they've added the largest transfer haul that they have to date since his first year having to reorder everything. So the last thing I'll say about Dickinson is I would add him to a group of Ashton Larson, Michael Braswell, Stephen Milam, that I already know are really good bat to ball. They're not high strikeout guys. They hit the ball hard a lot. They hit a lot of line drives. No, it's not the murderer's row of Bash Brothers. But you're starting to fill that lineup up with a lot of guys who can hit the ball the other way, who can hit some line drives, who don't strike out, can battle with 2 strikes. And I like that very much in an offensive lineup. And this is a big get. If you're just jumping in, not necessarily sure who I'm talking about, Daniel Dickinson is the latest add to LSU's baseball signing class, headed to Baton Rouge from Utah Valley. He was a 367 hitter at Utah Valley this past year, hit 18 home runs, stole 32 bases, was a star at Utah Valley under former LSU assistant Eddie Smith. And he is now headed to Baton Rouge. And I feel like he's pretty excited to come to Baton Rouge. Every tweet that has mentioned him, including one that I put out, he's liking and retweeting. So I think the guy is pretty excited to get down to Baton Rouge. And I know for sure that LSU staff is fired up to have him in the boat. So anything else that happens throughout the week with the LSU transfer portal, we will certainly dive into it. But a big get today for LSU in Daniel Dickinson. Step aside when we come back. Sharie Aack was at the DeJounte Murray press conference today, plus some Saints news as well. We'll do all that coming up next on the Hunt Palmer Show.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show.
Every shot, every goal, ESPN Bet has fans covered for the biggest moments on the road to the championship. The exclusive sportsbook of ESPN is the only place to find special offers and promotions from your favorite ESPN shows and personalities throughout the playoffs. New users can get a bet reset up to $1,000 in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. So download the ESPN Bet app today. What a play. Got a gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700 in partnership with the Bears Lake Charles. Terms and conditions apply. See app for details.
Our listeners fire up their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram is taking $20,000 off new 23 Ram 1500 trucks. We're open for business in our beautiful new showroom and taking $20,000 off the powerful Ram truck. All new Bayou vehicles come with a 7-year, 100,000-mile warranty. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs. Even in the case of an after-hours emergency, the light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property, so retail stores. Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local. So call today at 293-0450 or lainsurance.net.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
The best.
Matt Moscona inviting you to join us for Tuesday's AFR, powered by Sunshine, your hometown John Deere dealer in Louisiana. Shay Dixon talks about a big recruiting weekend, and LSU commit Zion Williams stops by 3 to 6, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Plucker's Wing Bar.
Shout out to Pluckers. I'll be there tonight. Sports Trivia, 8:30, Nicholson location. We'll have it out of there by 10 o'clock. So come on by, watch some Major League Baseball, some tennis, whatever your pleasure may be on this summer evening. But win some gift cards and drink some beer, eat some awesome wings. 2 locations, Pluckers, Nicholson just south of campus, Bluebonnet in front of the Mall of Louisiana. All the different flavors of award-winning jumbo chicken wings. Great sides. I love the mac and cheese. I love the tots. I do really like the fries, but I'm just going to go tots over fries if we're being quite honest. It's just a preference. And as Beck always says, you can get the tots tossed in your favorite wing sauce. Little tips of the trade there that Beck, who used to work at Pluckers, can help you with there. Earlier we were watching a little tennis up there at Wimbledon. Alcaraz was on the ropes early with the American, and a lot of people were thinking, a little wobbly. Loses the first set, and then he gets broken in the second set, and everybody's going, Alcaraz may be in a little bit of trouble here. And then he won just a million games in a row and just absolutely wiped the tennis court with the American Tommy Paul. So your thoughts on were you feeling optimistic as an American as you were watching early on?
Well, I was after the first set. However, we saw this happen a few rounds ago when Francis Tiafoe, another American, played Alcaraz and played him really well, got him to 5 sets, and then he just couldn't hang on at the end. Alcaraz just is so good so consistently. Even when he's not playing his best, he can still get you to multiple games in a set. Even if you win that set, you still feel like you almost lost it. And Tommy Paul won that first set pretty well done. Broke Alcaraz in that last game to win it. But then after that, it was just all Alcaraz, and Tommy Paul just couldn't hang on. So it's just
the games went 18-4. After that.
Yeah, he was unreal after that first set. I mean, he's going to be tough to beat in going into the semifinals.
We shall see. Go ahead.
Our phones aren't working right now. So
lovely. Well, we're not going to get to Sharif and then Glenn West coming up in the bottom of the hour.
We will see. I'm going to try to effort here and see what we can do. But right now, not looking good.
All right, so let's shuffle the deck a bit, as one says, and let's talk a little bit about the SEC Media Days attendees that are coming up in next week from Dallas. We'll have Jacob and T-Bob there, and we'll have Matt there as well, and they'll be anchoring our coverage from up there in Dallas. And I was a little surprised at the amount of quarterbacks that were going from the SEC. I expected Jalen Milroe to go from Alabama, and he is. I would not have expected Talon Green from Arkansas to be at SEC Media Days, but he's going. I would have expected Peyton Thorne to be there from Auburn, real veteran player who was a starter for them last year. And I would have expected Graham Mertz from Florida. Those four all going. Carson Beck, okay, I could get on board with that. He's potentially the number 1 pick in the draft next year, and he's playing for one of the top 5 teams in the country. Garrett Nussmeier, as I said yesterday, I didn't really expect him to be there. And he's going to be. And I think that's great for LSU to send their quarterback. I have no doubt Nussmeier can handle that really well. I just figured hadn't really started. You could go with Will Campbell there, who's up for a ton of awards and maybe a top 5 pick in the draft this coming year and is an All-American and all those things. I thought that might make a little bit more sense based on tradition. But they're sending Garrett Nussmeier. Jackson Dart's going to go, which I expected as well. But then, Blake Shapen is going to go for Mississippi State, who has not started a game there. Now you got a new coaching staff, and you've got a lot of new things that are going on there in Starkville with Jeff Levy's program. But they're bringing Blake Shapen in. You got Brady Cook from Missouri, and then Oklahoma is going to bring Jackson Arnold to Media Days as their starting quarterback, even though he hasn't been a full-time starter there. The last one on the list is Quinn Ewers, and I would have expected him as well. But you look at it, 11 of the 16 teams are bringing their quarterback, including 3 that are not incumbent starters. And I think that's great. Matt said for a long time that he thinks that every SEC team should be essentially mandated to bring their starting quarterback. I don't know how enforceable that is because you don't really know at times who your starting quarterback is. I think most of the time a head coach and an offensive coordinator have a good idea who their quarterback is going to be. But more often than not, there's a competition. And at that point, do you really want to bring one of those guys or both of those guys to answer quarterback competition questions? I don't know if that's the best thing. But in this case, maybe Oklahoma and LSU don't feel at all like there's a quarterback competition. Neither does Mississippi State. So it's like, hey, we know who our guys is. He's the face of the program. He's the face of the offense. Let's send him. So I think that's great that 11 of the 16 quarterbacks will be going. The 2 that I thought were notable omissions were Nico. Let's see. I looked this up earlier. Nico Iamaleava. Nico Iamaleava. That'll roll off the tongue by about September 14th. That's when right now, July 9th, I got no chance. September 14th, I will have Nico Iamaleava down. But he's not going. Former 5-star, Tennessee Vol, guy that is going to take over this high-flying, high-powered offense. Not his first year on campus, but he's not going to be going for the Vols. And then Connor Wigman is not going for Texas A&M. And that surprised me a little bit because he has been the starting quarterback for over a year. And so I just figured that that'd be a guy that they would want to send. A&M instead is going with Shamar Turner on the defensive line, Tarian York at linebacker, and Greg Zune III on offensive line. I don't really know who Trey Zune is, but they're not sending Connor Wigman, which I thought was notable. That's the only one that I'm surprised is not going. Not shocked Kentucky's not sending anybody. Not shocked the South Carolina's not sending anybody. And not shocked Vanderbilt is not sending anybody. But those are the guys at quarterback that I'm surprised aren't going. As far as the star power, not necessarily as huge as in previous years with the non-quarterbacks. I'll give you some of the names that are going that you may know. Malachi Moore is a DB at Alabama who's been a really good player there. Landon Jackson, somebody we're familiar with from Texarkana, spent a year at LSU. Now he's playing very well on the defensive line at Arkansas. He'll be at SEC Media Days. Harold Perkins is a star. He's going with LSU. Trey Harris, a Louisiana native who had a monster touchdown catching year for Ole Miss last year. He's going to be there and I think is noteworthy. Of course, Luther Burden III from Missouri is a big-time playmaker and a first-round pick next year, former 5-star. He's been kind of part of Missouri elevating itself in the SEC. I think he's a star. And then, I don't know if he's a star. He's a name that a lot of us know because of his story, and that's Cooper Mays. He went to Georgia as a big 5-star offensive lineman, ended up leaving there and committing to Tennessee. So a lot of guys that, Shamar Turner I just mentioned, that I think aren't stars. I didn't expect any of Vanderbilt's guys to be labeled as stars, but they're not necessarily. I don't, and look, trust me, Kelvin Banks is going to be a really high pick from Texas. He'll be there, but I don't know who Jahdae Barron is. I mentioned Texas A&M's guys. Like, I don't know who Eugene Asante or Keldrick Falk are from Auburn, who they're sending. Florida sending Shamar James, a linebacker. Then Montrell Johnson, the running back, who's been a good player there for a couple of years. But it's not, after the quarterbacks, there's just not as much star power. The good news is Jalen Milroe is a star. Carson Beck is a star. Jackson Dart, I think, would classify as a star. Quinn Ewers is a star. Jackson Arnold is thought to be the next guy for Oklahoma. And then you got like Brady Cook and Garrett Nussmeier, who I think people are pretty familiar with, but I wouldn't necessarily label as a star today. We'll see what this future holds. But I'm excited for SEC Media Days next week. We all know that it can be a battle trying to figure out what direction you want to take the show day to day. The baseball transfer portal has certainly injected a lot of life into what we're doing here. Matt McMahon's actually had some things going on, but the Saints are real quiet right now. So for next week, for Jacob and T-Bob to be on Radio Row starting at 7 o'clock through 10 o'clock, and then for Matt to have the guests that he's going to have from 3 to 6, and we'll be able to piggyback a good bit off of that, and we'll try to get some interviews, and I'll certainly do my first extensive preview of all these teams. Y'all know me. Y'all know in June, trying to get me to go through the Auburn secondary depth chart is difficult. It's hard for me to get to. When you start cranking up SEC Media Days and they're running live 12 hours a day from the Omni on SEC Network and you got the coaches talking, I realize that we don't quite get the juicy storylines that we once did from this thing, but it does get the juices flowing a little bit, and I'm happy to just dive in and do 4 teams a day right here on this show and start kind of formulating my opinions for what this fall will be. I purposely don't burn myself out in April, May, June grinding on football. I don't know how the Paul Feinbaum show exists, where in April you got a bunch of people dialing in talking about whether or not Auburn can beat Oklahoma. That's not where my bread is buttered. I'd like to focus on baseball at that point. But absolutely, after the 4th of July, when you can see SEC Media Days right there in the foreground, I'm good to dive in and get it rolling. And I'm starting to familiarize myself a little bit more with some of these teams and figure out, what the schedules dictate and what we think is going to happen over what's assuredly going to be a fall like we've never seen before because of the conference realignment and the expanded playoff. I could not be more excited for college football as a whole. I still have my concerns about the Tigers. I do. I have some concerns there, as I think most of you do. But as far as the sport as a whole, I think it's headed in a really good direction this fall and moving forward with the playoff the way it is. And I'm excited to kind of dive into that next week, and we'll do so with a lot of the players that we just laid out there for you. Here's the deal. We're going to either talk to Glenn West about LSU or get to some of the other stuff that we've got on the rundown. If Glenn is unavailable to us because the phones are simply not going to work, I do want to talk about Will Campbell and whether or not he can be the number 1 pick in the draft. ESPN wrote a story about it. They've kind of pooled together a number of candidates for guys that could be the top pick in next year's draft. They include guys we expect to be there right now and potential long shots, and you might be interested in one of those as well. So we'll get to all of that or Glenn West coming up next.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show.
Visit LeBear's Baton Rouge Casino this summer for exciting live sports action. We got the biggest screens around, and ESPN Bet is live in Louisiana. Plus, Penn Play Rewards members can win up to $500 in Penn Cash every single week. Visit PennPlaySports.com/Cover5 today and register for your chance to play and win. Not a member? Get the Penn Play app today. LeBear's Baton Rouge Casino is your live sports headquarters. Bring your crew for all the action. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 877-770-STOP.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram is taking $20,000 off new 23 Ram 1500 trucks. We're open for business in our beautiful new showroom and taking $20,000 off the powerful Ram truck. All new Bayou vehicles come with a 7-year, 100,000-mile warranty. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
The best kept secret in town is out. Discover Tallulah at the Renaissance Hotel on Bluebonnet.
Bayou Ford has $10,000 off F-150. $10,000 off the new 2024 Ford F-150. And all new Bayou Ford vehicles come with a 7-year, 100,000-mile warranty. The crew at Bayou Ford is going to do right by you.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. Breck, your #1 park system in the nation.
Farming is a way of life for us. It's not something we get up in the morning and dread going do. It's just something we go to bed at night looking forward to getting up to go do. John Deere equipment is what we as farmers strive to have. So it's in your blood, it's in your veins. It's just a part of who you are. Green is what we want to be in. The other tractors were acquired to patch it up to get to where you want to be. Where we want to be is in John Deere. Flip the switch and learn more about what it means to be powered by sunshine at sunequip.com.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Charles Hannegriff joins us for the Wednesday edition of Live at Lunch from Modesto. Burbank at Nicholson. Wes Reynolds from VEASAN joins us. We'll have our consensus golf picks live at lunch, 11 a.m. weekdays, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Plucker's Wing Bar.
All right, ESPN.com had a story that came out today. Jordan Reed wrote it, said 2025 NFL draft top pick predictions, early chances at #1. He's pulled these into groups, the serious contenders, and then you've got the potential risers, and then you've got the long shots. So let's get into that because LSU's actually mentioned twice in this piece. If you were listening last week, we talked about a top offensive tackles in the draft for next year, and one of those had Emory Jones ahead of Will Campbell at #2. So we'll get into this entire list here, but the serious contenders to be the #1 pick overall start with Carson Beck. Quarterback at Georgia, they say he's got a 20% chance to go #1. Last year he threw for 3,900 yards and 24 touchdowns, only 6 picks, got good size, 6'4", 220. He gets the ball out very, very quickly. The problem with Beck, as they write here, and I'm certainly not a scout, but it's what they're writing, he doesn't make a lot of plays outside of the structure. And that used to be okay. You hear the term, you pocket passer, you got to win from the pocket. And it's like, but really all the quarterbacks who are really good now move around and make plays. They're athletes. Mahomes is a great athlete. He makes every play almost off schedule. Josh Allen makes a ton of plays running around back there. Lamar Jackson, the MVP, he's a freak athlete. Joe Burrow moves around a ton and does a really good job with that. I mean, just about everybody you talk about in the NFL is a pretty good athlete that makes some plays off. You can make a lot of plays from in the pocket because their offensive line's awesome. They're better than everybody. They run the ball exceptionally well. Like, does that translate? And I have my doubts about that. I don't have any doubts about Michael Williams from Georgia. He's in this group as well. They say he's got a 15% chance of going number one. He's an edge rusher. The piece right here says that he enters the season as number one player on the board for the 2025 season. He's 6'5", 265, massive upside as a pass rusher. 9 sacks for the last 2 seasons, which doesn't show you a ton, but that doesn't show you how valuable he is to Georgia's defense, which has a lot of other guys who are tallying a ton of sacks as well. Michael Williams is a star, and I think it very well could be the number one pick in the draft. So he's number 2 here. And then same conference, same position, got to go up north a little bit. James Pierce Jr., an edge rusher for the Tennessee Vols. They give him a 15% chance of going number one as well. He's 6'5", 242. Last season, a 20% defensive pressure rate, which was 3rd in the FBS. He had 10 sacks, 18.5 tackles for loss for Tennessee. Great burst, great explosiveness, great first step. James Pierce right there with Michael Williams is great edge rushers. And I should add, LSU won't play either of them this year, which is fine by me. The next name is one that you're certainly familiar with, is a name that could go number one and is part of this favorites group, and that's Shedeur Sanders. They give him a 12% chance. I'm curious what Colorado looks like this year, because if they don't win a lot of games this year, which I don't think anybody thinks they are going to win a lot of games this year, like Deion had a top 10 pick, maybe according to this, the number 1 pick in next year's draft at quarterback and can't win anything? What does that tell you? And he's related to him. Now he'd have to go find the next one that he didn't help give birth to. So I don't love that. I do think Shedeur Sanders has a very exciting game in the way that Carson Beck doesn't make a lot of plays off schedule. Shedeur Sanders does. It's crazy to me that he was playing in the SWAC a couple of years ago, but he'll have another chance this year to state his case. And Quinn Ewers comes in this mix as well. They give him a 12% chance to be the number 1 pick in the draft. Huge tools, big production last year, 2nd year as the full-time quarterback in this system, sans the injury 2 years ago. And I think very well could be the number 1 pick in this draft, and I think that it's reasonable to expect that he'll beat out Arch Manning, which they try to manufacture this quarterback war, I think, because Arch has a cool last name. I think Quinn Ewers is going to be just fine. And so those are the cream of the crop there at the top. Now you got potential risers. Kelvin Banks, who we just mentioned in the last segment, who's going to be at SEC Media Days this year, is the offensive tackle at Texas that many believe to be the best in the class. He's right here. It said he's been one of the more consistent linemen in the country, starting at left tackle since arriving on campus. It's a total of 1,788 snaps. He's allowed only 2 sacks in 2 seasons. 6'4", 324 pounds. He's a great run blocker and a good pass rusher. They give him a 6% chance to be the first pick in the draft. Next on the list, Will Campbell. Another 6% chance to be the number 1 pick in the draft. Why he could be the top pick? Campbell will likely be right alongside Banks in the offensive tackle discussion throughout the pre-draft prospects. He's 6'6", 320 pounds. He's bigger as a prospect. He started 26 games, been the starter since arriving in Baton Rouge, and as a left tackle, has not allowed a sack in the last year and a half. He's a true technician at the position, not much flash to his game, just continually stacks wins and pass protection, showcasing plenty of physical ability as a run blocker, completely shutting down his matchups week in and week out. This is not something I really recall as someone who covers LSU, who's watched LSU for 25 years, consistently reading these pieces and having a left tackle thought of as the first pick in the draft, the best left tackle in the country, the best offensive line in the country. This is a little bit different. We've had Patrick Peterson, people thought was the best defensive back entering the season. Certainly Glenn Dorsey was that as well. Grant Delpit kind of got those kind of marks early there. Leonard Fournette as well. Like, we've had across the board at a lot of different positions the best in the country. I don't remember left tackle being that. And while I just told you that Kelvin Banks was listed ahead of him in this list, they're what and what as far as the best in the country. And could they be the number 1 pick in the draft? Sure. How about the long slots, long shots? They say some quarterbacks that could come out of nowhere, a la Joe Burrow, a la Jaden Daniels, a la early in the draft, not the first pick, Anthony Richardson, who kind of exploded onto the scene. They mentioned Riley Leonard, who's now at Notre Dame. They mentioned Connor Wigman at Texas A&M. They mentioned Cam Ward, who transferred down to Miami. And they also mentioned Garrett Nussmeier. 1% chance. So you're telling me there's a chance. It says after serving as Daniels' backup this past 2 seasons, Nussmeier takes over as the starter gig at LSU. He has good accuracy and touch down the field. If Garrett Nussmeier is the number 1 pick in the draft, some really awesome stuff has happened between Labor Day and Christmas. Really awesome stuff. I don't know that I necessarily see it, although now it's a better chance than it was 15 years ago. Because if you remember like the Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick model on what they want from a quarterback when they're drafting him, they want a guy who's been the starter for 3 years. They want a guy who's 6'6". They want big arm. And Garrett Nussmeier is 6'2", 205. Like, that's a big human. It's not a big quarterback. But he's not as athletic as Jaden Daniels or Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen. He's probably not as athletic as Joe Burrow. And he doesn't have a ton of skins on the wall to this point. But every time you start to look at these lists and guys to watch for, watch list this, and who could be this and who could be that, he tends to creep up. And I'm not sure how much of that is because Jaden Daniels won the Heisman in this system a few years after Joe Burrow won the Heisman here. I'm not sure how much of that is because he's got a last name people recognize. I'm not sure how much of that is because he played well in the bowl game. I'm not sure where this buzz comes from, but I'm good with it. Like, Graham Mertz over at Florida has won a lot of games and thrown for a lot of yards at 2 different places. He's much more accomplished a player than Garrett Nussmeier is. But Nussmeier gets put on these lists, and guys who have been more productive don't. And maybe that's because they know that Mertz is not a good prospect at the NFL level, and they think maybe Nussmeier could be, even though he's not right now. And that makes a ton of sense. But I was interested to see Garrett Nussmeier's name pop up on this list. So if you're scoring at home and you're looking at this ESPN.com story, potential number 1 overall picks in the NFL draft, LSU's got 2 of them. But as we know, they're both on one side of the football. So there's work to be done on the defensive side. And for those that are screaming and yelling and going, what about Harold Perkins, pass rusher? That's a huge deal. He could be the first pick in the draft. Not at 6'2", 210 pounds. That's not how that works. Awesome college player. Potential very, very high ceiling as an NFL linebacker that he's not even close to reaching just at this point. But not necessarily a threat to be the number 1 pick in the draft. Will Campbell, very much so if the quarterbacks falter or somebody that already has a quarterback has the first pick. And then potentially Garrett Nussmeier. If all those stars align, we'll take it. And now at this point, I'm not preconditioned to say there's no chance a quarterback from LSU could win the Heisman and be the number 1 or number 2 pick in the draft. Now I can say, that makes some sense. That happens all the time around here. Crazy how times change over the course of 5 years down here in Baton Rouge. We're trucking along right here on a Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. We're presented by Pluckers. Come on by and see us tonight at Pluckers Sports Trivia, 8:30 at the Nicholson location. When we come back, I had a thought literally last night while I was closing my eyes in bed, thinking about some things potentially to talk about on the show. And it was one of those that led me to start doing some research today about how much better professional athletes are getting. And I put some numbers behind it, and it's fascinating to me. We'll see if it's fascinating to you coming up next.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show.
AVSSLA.com. That is the website for audio video security solutions. Look, there is nothing more important than the security of your home and your family. And audio video security solutions can be trusted with installing your home security system. They've done the process for us. Mitchell Fisher came out. My wife met him at the house, said, here are the windows. We need all these monitored. We want to put a camera here, camera here. If you can handle some lighting, we'd love to do that as well. And now we've got our 2 cameras up at the house. We've got access to that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the phone, on our app. We've got great crystal clear picture. We've got the ability to pause, to rewind, to play back. All that is fantastic. And we can arm and disarm the alarm system on the app right there on our phone. I would know how to do none of that. My wife would know how to do none of that. Now it's been made so easy for us that we feel great about it, and it gives us the peace of mind to know that our home is safe and secure. That's my friends at Audio Video Security Solutions. Check them out online at avssla.com. Check them out on Instagram, avss_BR, and give Mitchell Fisher a phone call. He's the owner of the company, 225-439-7920. It's Audio Video Security Solutions at avssla.com.
Get the 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge app powered by Bayou Ford and tap the microphone icon to send us your thoughts in an audio message. Your message could be played on air during Off the Bench with Esther and T-Bob, The Hunt Palmer Show, and after further review with Matt Moscone.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team. And backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
At Relief Windows, we're more than windows. We're windows, doors, hardy plank, and vinyl siding. But our number one product is always customer satisfaction. Visit us online at reliefwindows.com.
Hey, it's Matt Moscone. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques. Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local. So call today at 293-0450 or lainsurance.net.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood Subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered gold. Breck, your #1 park system in the nation.
Gulf Coast Bank and Trust is giving our customers the power to bank anywhere, anytime during this challenging event. And we're right there with you. Our mobile banking app is a...
Matt Moscone inviting you to join us for Tuesday's AFR, powered by Sunshine, your hometown John Deere dealer in Louisiana. Shay Dixon talks about a big recruiting weekend, and LSU commit Zion Williams stops by. 3 to 6, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Plucker's Wing Bar.
Wrapping up hour number 1 here on this Tuesday. I just found this fascinating. Just kind of put some numbers behind some things that I was thinking about last night. Just about the improvement of the professional athlete and how freakishly good these guys are. And then my next thought, which was just kind of an odd thing, but it's like, where is this going over the next 40 years? And I'll tell you what I'm talking about here, and Beck, you can chime in. Like, Al Geiberger, you know who Al Geiberger is?
I do not.
He shot 59 in the Memphis Open on the PGA Tour in 1977.
That was
Big
a while
deal.
ago.
It was a big deal. He's Mr. 59. And Chip Beck came along in 1991.
Great
and
last name.
He did it. That's true. He did. He did it at 1991 at Vegas. He shot 59. And David Duvall, 8 years later, shot 59 at the Bob Hope to win. And those guys were the guys that had done it. 3 times from 1977 to 1999. Actually, 3 times from 1916 to 1999. That's 83 years. It happened 3 times. Over the next 24, 2000 to 24, 11 times in 25 years. And to add to that, in the last 7 years, 7 different 59s have been due to the equipment that balls spin, like the whole thing. But that's, to me, players are to this happens every week. It's happened the last 2 weeks. Cam Young did it, who everybody knows, and then we saw it on Saturday from somebody that no one's ever heard of. I can't even look up the guy's name. I can't even.
Hayden Springer.
Hayden Springer shot 59. No one even knows who that is. And I can relate this to a lot of different sports. In 2008, which is not that long ago, I was in college, there were 69 pitches thrown 100 miles an hour in Major League Baseball for the season. 69. In 2016, they 20x'd that to 1,419. And we're now 8 years beyond that. They're just everyone throws 100. It's like every guy. To put that in perspective, in 2008, there were 69 pitches, as I said, that were 100 miles an hour. Skeens threw 46 in one Omaha start that were 100 miles an hour against Tennessee. That's almost all. Like, so my question is, like, there was nobody that looked like Victor Wembanyama or Giannis Antetokounmpo 20 years in the NBA, 20 years ago, let alone 50 years ago. Where are we going? Like, this is what I'm allowing myself to think of in 40 years. How hard are they going to be throwing? What are these guys going to be shooting on the PGA Tour? What are the basketball players even going to look like? Is there a limit to what we can do as humans? Are we reaching that or what?
I don't know.
Wembanyama's what, 7'4"?
Yeah.
And plays like he's 6'2"?
He plays like Kevin Durant.
I marvel at how ridiculously good, and I could probably do this for every sport. I could probably do it for swimming. I could probably do it for tennis based on serve miles per hour. I can probably do it for track and field on how, bigger, stronger, faster, finding new ways to do things is just part of the way human evolution and biology has always worked. But, where is the limit?
It's hard to say, just because we've seen, like you said, a lot of these records, a lot of this stuff has happened not even within just the last 10 or 15 years, and it's happening so much frequently with the 59s and the guys throwing 100. It's not like it's progressively, every 10 or 20 years something new, like guys have gotten faster, like throwing harder, all this stuff. It's like within the last 10 or 15 years, it's all just happening.
And it's I wonder if when my grandson goes to his first baseball game,
that everybody's gonna be throwing
105. Is that?
I don't know. I feel like,
because if that's the case, we're gonna have to move the mound back.
It seems to me that maybe the body is being pushed to its limit in baseball, just because, I know guys got injured all the time a long time ago, but you're just not seeing guys being able to go as long. And I guess that's partly because they're trying to prevent injury, but guys are still getting hurt a lot, pitching wise. Tommy John's happening every year. So I don't know if the body can be pushed even more. Maybe the mechanics get better, but it's hard to say. But I don't know. I don't know that it's hard for me to believe that guys can be throwing 110.
As long as we continue to make golf holes that are 420 yards, 460, you can't hit it on the green in one shot,
right,
and you're never going to make it consistently from 175. So to an extent, that number is protected. But the amount of people that are shooting 50, 59, and then Furyk shot 58, and we've seen guys on the web.com shoot 57, and and they're at Birdie Fest at the Corn Ferry Tour. But it's just how good these guys are at sports is truly shocking. And I think a lot of times we probably don't even think about it because they make it look so easy. But good grief. I followed up one of my best rounds of golf ever, and then 1 week later shot my worst round of golf in 4 years. That's normal human stuff. These guys it's freakish. And I just allowed myself sitting there last night kind of thinking about what can we talk about on the show tomorrow, going, some of this stuff is absurd that these professional athletes are doing. And maybe sometimes we take it for granted. I try not to, but Cam Young shooting 59 and then coming about and birdieing the first 4 holes the next day is absurd to me and will always be absurd to me. And it happens. And the guy did it the next week, who I'd never heard of. Just crazy, crazy stuff. Our Tuesday shows are brought to you by Pluckers. If you missed any of the first hour, catch it on demand. 1045ESPN.com's on demand tab, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google. Wherever you find your sound, you can most certainly find us. You can always find us on YouTube as well. When we come back, some NFL top players at a position in one conference is dominating. You'll probably know who it is. We'll talk about that after SportsCenter on the Hunt Palmer Show.
Rev Business is here to connect your company beyond your storefront. We're here to power your passion, improve your communication, and link you to your customers with the services you need and the local support you deserve. Backed by our commitment to 5-star reliability. For a limited time, get internet plus 2 hosted phone lines for only $133. A powerful combination at a great price. Visit letsrev.biz. Rev Business.
Bayou Ford has $10,000 off F-150. $10,000 off the new 2024 Ford F-150. And all new Bayou Ford vehicles come with a 7-year, 100,000-mile warranty. The crew at Bayou Ford is going to do right by you.
The Windsor Senior Living Community in Mandeville, Louisiana is a beautiful, vibrant apartment community geared toward seniors. They are nestled right in the heart of Mandeville, where seniors live a more carefree lifestyle in spacious apartments with the peace of mind that comes from having a little extra help. Call the Windsor at 985-624-8040 to schedule a lunch and tour. Come see how the Windsor can be your passport to peace of mind.
Farming is a way of life for us. It's not something we get up in the morning and dread going do. It's just something we go to bed at night looking forward to getting up to go do. John Deere equipment is what we as farmers strive to have. So it's in your blood, it's in your veins. It's just a part of who you are. Green is what we want to be in. The other tractors were acquired to patch it up to get to where you want to be. Where we want to be is in John Deere. Flip the switch and learn more about what it means to be powered by sunshine at sunequip.com.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, Our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs, even in the case of an after-hours emergency. The light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques. Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire.
This is SportsCenter.
I'm Christine Lisi. Another NBA Max deal's done. Pistons guard Cade Cunningham's agreed to a 5-year, $224 million rookie extension. Reports ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski could be worth up as much as $269 million. Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott today addressed recent photos showing him wearing a walking boot, said it was precautionary, his surgically repaired ankle a little sore after a few days of hard training. Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow's got some ideas when it comes to an 18-game NFL regular season. One of them, an additional bye week. Told Pardon My Take, 18-game schedule should have 2 byes. Second bye, an extra game, would put the Super Bowl on the day before President's Day. ESPN NFL insider Adam Schefter.
You've got a face of a league just openly thinking along those lines that, okay, well, if we go to 18 games, this is what it should look like. So if that's happening, it's just another sign to me that it's tracking that way, and it's only a matter of time before we get to 18 games.
Adam Schefter on Unsportsmanlike. Wimbledon men's quarters, Daniil Medvedev knocked out top-seeded Jannik Sinner.
Hey, it's your resident Super Bowl champ, Chris Candy, coming on Wednesday. We've been talking all week about the most competitive divisions in the NFL, but I'll tell you which one I think is absolutely the league's best. It's Unsportsmanlike, 6 a.m. Eastern, right here on ESPN Radio, ESPN2, and ESPNU.
Direct your attention to something quite extraordinary.
Now, the Hunt Palmer Show. The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
Number 2, Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, presented by Pluckers Wing Bar. 2 locations, Nicholson just south of campus, Bluebonnet in front of the Mall of Louisiana. Ice cold draft beer, delicious jumbo chicken wings. Your selection of sauce and side. As I told you in the first hour, I go Tots. I support mac and cheese. I support fries as well. And we'll be there tonight for Plucker Sports Trivia, 8:30. Have you out of there by 10 o'clock. Always a good time on Tuesdays to get on by Pluckers. A busy first hour, busier than we thought, because we thought Glenn West and Sharie Aack were both going to join us. But instead, we hit on a couple of different things. The SEC Media Days attendees that we'll talk to next week. Will Campbell potentially being the number 1 pick in the draft. Also talked about LSU getting a big transfer portal offensive edition in the form of Daniel Dickinson. If you missed any of that, you can catch it on demand at 1045ESPN.com's on-demand tab, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, wherever you find your sound, and, of course, on YouTube. If you missed our LSU football segments, you can always catch those each and every day at Hunt on LSU. Always a great time to get by and check out some LSU content. Saints as well, Hunt on Saints. We're about to get into football full swing. And I realize that it can be at times a pain to go through the entirety of a YouTube show to kind of find exactly what you're looking over the course of 2 hours. If you're just looking for Saints and LSU stuff, we break them out, and we have our 2 channels, Hunt on LSU as well as Hunt on Saints, and we can make that happen for you. Cassie and Jesse cut up those segments, get them into 10, 12-minute digestible bites, and they'll show up right there on your homepage if you go ahead and subscribe up to the channel. So we got a busy hour number 2. Glenn West is going to be with us in about 15, 20 minutes talking LSU. We'll talk some football with Glenn. We'll talk some baseball with Glenn as well, and we'll try to run down Sharie Aack as well. I know he's got to deal with the New Orleans Saints here at some point. We'll try to get to Sharie Aack as well. Let's start here. ESPN.com is doing a list of the top 10 players at every position in the NFL. And yesterday we went through it and talked about the running backs, and Alvin Kamara was outside the top 10 in honorable mention, and kind of talked about whether or not he could climb back into that ranks. The Saints don't have anybody in the top 10 nor honorable mention in the top 5 with these defensive tackles. So I wanted to go a different direction with it, and because something was standing out as I was going through these defensive tackles. And let's see if it jumps out to you as well. Chris Jones is number 1. Quinnen Williams, number 2. Dexter Lawrence, number 3. Jeffrey Simmons comes in at number 4. Justin Madubuike at number 5. Christian Wilkins, number 6. Derek Brown, number 7. DeForest Buckner, number 8. Kenny Clark, number 9. And Javon Hargrove, number 10. The honorable mentions were Vita Vea. They were Jonathan Allen. They were Jalen Carter, Daron Payne, Cam Hayward, and Christian Barmore. If anything stood out to you there, it was probably the same thing that stood out to me. Chris Jones, Mississippi State. Quinnen Williams, Bama. Jeffrey Simmons, Mississippi State. Justin Madubuike, A&M. Derek Brown, Auburn. Jonathan Allen, Bama. Daron Payne, Bama. Jalen Carter, Georgia. Christian Barmore, Bama. That is 9 of the top 15 defensive tackles in the NFL that come from one conference. The ones that don't, Dexter Lawrence and Christian Wilkins from Clemson, DeForest Buckner from Oregon, Kenny Clark, UCLA, Vita Vea, Washington, and Cam Hayward from Ohio State. You've got one outlier here, Javon Hargrove from South Carolina State. He's the only outlier that comes from a smaller school. And this, to me, is the biggest difference in the SEC and then the elite level programs. Clemson certainly in that, Ohio State certainly in that, even Oregon certainly in that, and the rest of college football. You can't fake or find a diamond in the rough more often than not of an interior defensive lineman. They either are 6'4", 320 and can move, or they're not. And if they're 6'4", 320 and can move, they're not going to get lost in the weeds, and SEC team's going to find them. And that's, I think, what's the most interesting thing about this list, because we'll go through DBs and we'll go through running backs, we'll go through wide receivers. And to me, you're going to see a lot of smaller schools. You're going to see a lot of guys that come from non-power schools. Defensive linemen, they come from one spot in the Southeastern Conference. That's why it's the best conference in the league. Speaking of the best, Sharie Aack's the best because he makes such a great effort to join us every single Tuesday. We usually do it at 2:30. Sometimes needs to be a little bit earlier. Sometimes our phones are down and we got to go to Zoom, and he still makes it work. Sharie joins us now via Zoom. How are you, sir?
I'm good, Hunt. Do I need to have my video playing or no?
No, you don't, because we got your beautiful picture right there from the WDSU website, right there on the YouTube stream, and we can hear you great. So everything is good. Did you learn anything from the DeJounte Murray press conference today?
One of the best press conferences I've listened to in quite some time. Maybe since I've been here in New Orleans, almost 12 years. I found him very insightful, very honest. A guy that is going to be a pretty good leader for this franchise for the foreseeable future. I just enjoyed everything he said. I mean, he said the right things. He won the press conference, and I think he's going to win on the court too. I mean, he is the leader this team needs on the court and probably off the court. Good team already, as it is when it comes to having really good guys on and off the court. But I think this kind of takes them to another level.
We understand that New Orleans is not the most desirable free agent destination for NBA players. So have you been able to sense that in some press conferences, some media availabilities, in some players? And was there something that DeJounte Murray said or the way he carried himself that led you to believe that's not the case with him?
I like the part that he kept mentioning over and over again. I don't care about recognition. I don't need people to tell me how good I'm doing or the great stuff that I'm doing on and off the court. He's like, that's the stuff I don't need. He's like, as long as we're winning. One of the things he mentioned quite a few times, that Zion is a superstar, and he was there today, and he was sitting in there listening and watching everything that DeJounte was saying. So just to mention him a few times, how, pretty much how this is Zion's team, I want to help him, and I hope he helps me. And he said the same thing about Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, who, he was very happy that Herb offered him the number 5 jersey without even asking. He was like, I'm going to take care of Herb Jones. I know he doesn't want me to, but I'm going to take care of him. That's the type of leader you want. You want somebody who's going to go, the extra distance to make sure everything is well with the team and the franchise on and off the court. And I just bought into a lot of the stuff that he said today. I mean, he wants to make sure people are pushing him, and he's going to make sure he's pushing them. He wants to make sure if he's not watching film, that someone's going to say, "Hey, you need to watch this part of the film." So, there was a lot of good things that came out of that press conference.
Is there one thing on the floor that he brings more so than anything else, or is it just an all-around game?
He's a good all-around player. The one thing that he, did really well in the last 3 seasons, steals. Only the 2 players who had the most steals the last 2 or 3 seasons, I think last 3 seasons combined, DeJounte Murray and Herb Jones. Now you have them on the court together, 300-plus steals. So that's, that's a nightmare for opposing teams, and his ability to pass the ball as a guard. I think was it 21-22 season. I think he averaged a little bit more than 9 assists per game. That finished, I think, top 5 in the NBA. I don't think the Pelicans have ever had anyone finish in the top 5 in the NBA, since Chris Paul left in terms of assists. So you get a little bit of everything. You get a guy who's, can finish, who can close out games. And, that's something that's been missing from this team because Zion hasn't been available down the stretch of the season, gotten hurt, there at the end of the season. And you got to have somebody who can, take it to the basket and finish for you whenever you don't have Zion available. If Brandon Ingram's not on his team, which, Brandon isn't a guy who closes out games. DeJounte Murray is a guy who can close out games. And I think he brings that, that attitude and personality to the team. And I think it's going to be infectious. I'll be honest with you. It's going to be very infectious, the things he can do on the court.
The Thunder and Celtics won a ton of games this year, and they're thought to be elite defensive teams. Now, you got to score, too, and obviously that's the case. But do you think that there's an era of defense potentially being ushered into the NBA in what we consider a very, very offensive league?
Yeah, there is defense. I mean, you got Drew Holiday, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum can play a little bit of defense. But when you have, your 2 guards and Drew and Jaylen who can play defense and who can actually put up some baskets, I mean, Jaylen was awesome, and he was the MVP. He was awesome of the finals. So yeah, I mean, you still got to play defense, Hunt, when it gets to the crunch time of the playoffs and the games that matter. It can't just be about jacking up threes, highlight dunks. I mean, as you saw, some of those games are low scoring in the playoffs. It's just officials change and your defense changes. And you got to play defense. It can't just be about trying to score 120 points a game. That's not going to win you a championship.
What's next for the Pelicans?
Daniel Tice is not the answer, obviously. He's there for depth when it comes to the big man.
Right.
They still need to find a big man. Look, I just, like I told you last week, and I told you a few times, he's not just going to give Brandon Ingram away for free. David Griffin is really smart about how he does trades. And it may not happen. And he may still be on the team until the trade deadline. He may get an extension that may not be a max. But that doesn't still stop them from going to get a big guy. Maybe they can use the trade exemption to get someone, a Walker Kessler, and it still might cost them a pick or 2. They need to address it. And I wouldn't mind seeing Walker Kessler on this team. Played at Auburn, was a fine player there. Did a good job. He's done a good job in Utah. He could be one of the targets, but I still to this day think it's Jared Allen. Jared Allen is the number 1 target for David Griffin and company.
What you got on the Saints this week coming up on WDSU?
It's quiet, man. After today, I'm on vacation until they start training camp. So it's going to be a quiet 2 weeks. Maybe we hear something about Kamara getting an extension, a couple-year extension, and everything's squared away before training camp. But other than that, it's quiet, man. It is going to be quiet unless something comes out with AK.
Do you think that's going to happen? You say maybe. Do you feel like, based on what you're hearing, that could be a real possibility?
Knowing the pressure that Dennis Allen and Mickey Loomis, that they're under right now after missing the playoffs last 3 seasons, and one of their best offensive player who, Clint Kubiak's going to build this offense around, isn't around right now. And they just, got to avoid that distraction after these last 2 seasons under Dennis Allen. They need to avoid the distraction in year 3 with all these new, coaches. I think they get something done. Now, I'm not saying it won't bleed in a little bit to training camp, but I think they try to get something knocked out in the next, 2.5, 3 weeks. That I'm including the 3 weeks as 1 week of buffer during training camp. So I really think they're going to try to solve something. They just can't go into this training camp with this distraction with one of their top offensive players.
That's fascinating to me. We'll see exactly what shakes out. We appreciate you being flexible and joining us. Have a great vacation, and we'll talk in a couple of weeks.
All right, man. I'll be there on July 23rd. I'll be there and ready to go on our little radio call for the 23rd.
That is 2 weeks from today, so we'll look forward to it. Thanks, Sharie.
All right, hon.
He's Sharie Aack, WDSU, down there in New Orleans. We'll let Sharie step aside next week when we're wall-to-wall SEC Media Days and talking SEC football. We'll let Sharie enjoy some time away. But 2 weeks from now, the Saints will be strapping them on out west, and that'll be a lot of the rookies that are getting into their first training camp, and we'll certainly look forward to all of that. We'll take a time out when we come back. Glenn West from Go 24/7 talking Tigers. We'll start baseball, maybe a little football as well with Glenn on the Hunt Palmer Show.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show.
All right, Barrel's kind of dissipated. Hit Houston really, really hard. I got some friends that are there that have lost power and still don't have it back. Rolled through Shreveport. I know some pretty hard rain there, and we know that that's not going to be the end of storm season. It's inevitable. Hopefully we're dry. Hopefully we're clean, but we know what happens at this part of the world. Give yourself the peace of mind of knowing no matter what happens, you're protected and your power will remain on. Thanks to the folks at Boudreaux's Electric. Why go with Boudreaux's? You can get a Generac generator from a number of places. Well, you go with Boudreaux's because they're going to treat every single client and customer like a VIP. You're not going to pay additional for the VIP package. You're just going to get that type of service from Boudreaux's Electrical. You'll get your unit installed mostly underground with the highest quality in copper and wiring and tubing. You're going to get monitoring 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so that if something happens to your generator while you're not aware of it, they know at Boudreaux's Electrical they can come out, service it so that when a storm does come through, maybe it's just one of those nasty summer afternoon showers that we get, knocks the power out. It's just a nuisance. Protect yourself against that with the folks at Boudreaux's Electric. You can check them out online, boudreauxelectrical.com, or give them a call at 985-397-1562. 985-397-1562. That's my friends at Boudreaux's Electrical.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
The best kept secret in town is out. Discover Tallulah at the Renaissance Hotel on Bluebonnet.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Farming is a way of life for us. It's not something we get up in the morning and dread going do. It's just something we go to bed at night looking forward to getting up to go do. John Deere equipment is what we as farmers strive to have. It's in your blood, it's in your veins. It's just a part of who you are. Green is what we want to be in. The other tractors were acquired to patch it up to get to where you want to be. Where we want to be is in John Deere. Flip the switch and learn more about what it means to be powered by sunshine at sunequip.com.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
BRAC teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. BRAC, your #1 park system in the nation.
The best.
Charles Hannegriff joins us for the Wednesday edition of Live at Lunch from Modesto. Burbank at Nicholson. Wes Reynolds from VSiN joins us. We'll have our consensus golf picks live at lunch, 11 a.m. weekdays, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Plucker's Wing Bar.
Thanks to Sharie Aack for making some time for us here on this Tuesday, as he generally does. In the first hour, we always talk to Glenn West of Go 24/7. He's a senior writer over there. Backs up a little bit thanks to our resolving of the phone situation. He joins us now via Zoom. Glenn West, how are you, sir?
It's a good thing Jay Johnson isn't using the 104.5 phone lines. He might miss a commitment call from some lucky player.
That's not going to happen. He's not going to miss any commitment calls ever or any calls ever. We're not quite as fortunate here, but we got it all figured out. He's making some hay in the transfer portal, and obviously got some great news today with Daniel Dickinson jumping in. What do you know about him?
Yeah, Dickinson just actually officially put that up on his social media page. So yeah, he's committed. He's another infielder that LSU can certainly use. I mean, you look at kind of the potential there of losing Tommy White and then maybe Michael Braswell and Jared Jones as well. You really only feel good about Stephen Milam in terms of your returners there. So adding an infielder there it kind of felt like the last box LSU needed to tick this offseason. They've done a really good job, I think, of adding some high potential transfer portal pitchers. They've got an outfielder. They've got a couple power hitters. Now you bring in an infielder here in Dickinson who batted .367 last year, had 18 homers, 53 RBIs. But really the big thing that sticks out to me is he drew 34 walks and only 28 strikeouts and about 250 at bats last year. So this is a pretty disciplined player at the plate. Probably somebody that Jay Johnson would love to get his hands on and continue to utilize and kind of develop here over the next year. And somebody that I think can help LSU as a kind of veteran player that's obviously played here a couple of years in college ball.
I'll play devil's advocate here because I gave my thoughts on Dickinson at the top of the show, and I think he's going to be great, and I know the staff's really, really high on him. But what would you say to the LSU fan that says Tommy White was at NC State setting a national freshman home run record? Luke Holman was at Alabama as their Friday night guy. You saw Jacob Berry was the national freshman of the year. Like, these are the guys that I expect to see. Thatcher Hurd, engaged jump from UCLA. I'm looking at Dayton, Utah Valley, Wofford, Indiana State for two guys. Like, why aren't they getting the big name guys?
Well, I think for one, there aren't as many big name guys that have been in the portal this year. I mean, you look at Gavin Killeen. I think he was probably one. A couple of those A&M guys that really jumped in there late. Most of them returned to their school after they hired their hitting coach. So I don't think that there was a ton of you're not going to have there wasn't a Tommy White in this transfer portal class. There wasn't I mean they have some really talented pitchers, and I think LSU got a couple of them. I mean, Cohen is a guy that I think can come in and really help LSU as a potential starter next year. I think he'll absolutely be in that mix. But this is a little bit of a different route. I will concede that. Jay Johnson's definitely dipping deep into his recruiting, recruiting waters here in terms of the scope and the talent and the range in which he's going out and finding some of these players. And I think it's been a deliberate approach, because what you've seen here is LSU has lost a lot of their kind of talent that they recruited to develop over a couple year period of time. That most of those guys are, now in the portal and off to other places. And I think it makes sense that LSU wanted to go in and grab some experience at a lot of different places and a lot of different, conferences. And look, you got to go out there and prove that they can, pitch and hit and field at this SEC level come 2025. But there's a lot of interesting, pieces here. And a guy like Dickinson, I think I've read is, a potential, top 40, 50 kind of pick next year in the draft. And that's exactly what you would expect somebody like LSU to bring in. So, maybe not the big name schools that you're bringing in from other transfer portal places, but I think if there's talent out there, it won't take Jay Johnson a long time to sniff it out. And this is a different route he's taking this year, but one that I think, could prove to be effective.
Let's talk about that route. We know exactly how Brian Kelly wants to build his roster. 4- and 5-star high school kids. He won't say it that way, but that's what we're suggesting. Elite high school talent he can keep for 3 or 4 years and then pick and choose a couple guys out of the portal. We know Matt McMahon really likes the fact that Tyrell Ward and Jalen Reed and those guys have been in the program for a long time. Derek Fountain comes to mind as well. And then he's going to go, get a guy or two here that he needs to figure out. They've talked about that openly. And we know that Jay Johnson has said we need big league players, but how do you think he's going to go about that here? Is you got to factor in the draft, you got to factor in guys that have come in as highly touted players that have left, and then, of course, the transfer portal, which he's hit really hard 2 of his 3 years here. So how do you think Jay wants to handle it?
Yeah, I think you're hoping that a couple of big league players are already on the roster. I mean, I think you're hoping that, Chase Shores gets back healthy and is that guy and can be kind of that Friday, Saturday guy for you as a weekend starter. I think you're hoping that you can get Griffin Herring back for another year. That would be obviously another guy that I would throw into that pro ball consideration, a future major leaguer. Stephen Milam, Jake Brown, Ashton Larson. These are all guys with that kind of potential. They still have to get there. They still have to develop over the next couple of years to get there. That can get there. But I do think, probably the biggest thing that I took from Jay Johnson's press conference last month when he was kind of recapping the season and looking ahead to the offseason was, look, this is kind of uncharted waters for us over the last couple of years. I'm used to bringing guys in and developing them over 2 or 3 year periods. Now we're really building this roster 1 year at a time, and that's something that I think is going to take a little time for this group to kind of come to grips with. But they've done a really nice job, I think, of supplementing this roster. I mean, it's really been an overhaul. I mean, like this, that you don't have very many guys returning to your roster next year, and I think you're hoping that this is going to be a big time freshman class in terms of signings and guys that you get to campus. The JUCO route, they've signed 5 JUCO kids to come in and help supplement this roster as well. And then obviously the 10, 11 transfer portal guys you've had to this point. So, if you can get a couple of guys back from the current roster that are out there for the draft, the Michael Braswells, the Griffin Herrings, maybe 1 or 2 others that might be in there, then I think you feel really, confident in the roster that you're able to throw out there next season. But it is going to be very much a 1 year, build it at a time kind of ordeal, I think, going forward, just because that's the nature of the beast that we live in these days with college athletics.
Glenn West is our guest, senior writer over at Go 24/7 for all your team coverage, recruiting coverage. They got you covered over there at Go 24/7. Let's shift to football here, Glenn. Big heater for the LSU staff on the defensive line and the recruiting haul. What do you make of Bo Davis's efforts there over the last month?
Yeah, Bo Davis and Kevin Peoples, man, they've been putting in a lot of work. When you look at Shanklin and LeJesse Harold are the 2 edges that you've gotten. We've got them as top 10 edge rushers in the country. So you have a pair of top 10, edge rushers, top 120 players in the country coming in to kind of help Kevin Peoples there in his first year as the defensive ends coach. He's done a phenomenal job. And then obviously with what Bo Davis is doing right now by flipping, Brandon Brown from Texas and then also grabbing Zion Williams out of Texas as well. Those are 4 big time additions. And like, I know, all the LSU fans want to look at, what their rating is and what 4- and 5-star status they have. Bo Davis is a guy that, we came in knowing he knows how to develop talent. And if he sees talent and he feels like there's something to work with there and he wants to bring them into the program, I think you got to trust him and trust that, this is going to be a really good kind of 1-2 punch that LSU can start with in this 2025 class at defensive tackle. They have, some other irons in the fire that they could potentially look at down the line. But, right now you look at this room, it needs, some youth coming up the pipeline, right? Because you're going to be losing some veterans on the inside and certainly at edge rusher too, when you consider guys like Savion Jones and Paris Shand and Braden Swinson, all kind of older veterans. As you kind of shift into this next phase of your program here, you've got to supplement that with some really good freshman talent. LSU thinks they've found some here, and I think you just kind of look at their track records of those two coaches, of Peoples and Bo Davis, and you got to trust that they're bringing in the right kind of guys that can help lead this program going forward.
Here's a super big picture question, but how would you assess the recruiting of Brian Kelly throughout his entirety of his time here at LSU? And I know a lot of that goes on his staff, but with the program, how would you assess the last 3+ years of recruiting?
Yeah, I would say it's been strong to very strong. I mean, look, if you look at the offensive pieces that they brought in the last couple of years, I don't think any LSU fan that's watched LSU's offense the last couple of years would say that there's any problems there in terms of finding, talent, recruiting talent, developing talent. But, I think it's still probably a little TBD with the defense because you've had to, make your defensive staff changes this last year. It's probably going to take another 1 or 2 years before you really feel like you're getting the personnel you want with this new staff in place on the defensive side of the ball. So, I think it's very strong in terms of the philosophy and kind of the principle of where they want to go as a program. But certainly you've got to wait and see kind of the defense kind of, play catch up a little bit. And I think that's something that Brian Kelly has talked about is, they feel like they've gotten the right kind of recruiters, the right kind of coaches to bring in and develop personnel on offense. It's just about now, having the right defensive staff in place and recruiting and developing that side of the ball as well.
Garrett Nussmeier headed to Dallas for Media Days. Mason Taylor headed to Dallas for Media Days. Harold Perkins headed to Dallas for Media Days. What was your reaction to seeing those 3 names?
Yeah, I was 1 for 3. I thought they might bring one.
Yeah,
I thought they might bring one of the offensive linemen. But look, it's a good group. I mean, and I think if you look at kind of Perkins' willingness to go and to be a part of that, I think that's very, very positive if you're an LSU fan. I think it means that he's, not only coming out of his shell a little bit more publicly, but also maybe is ready to take on more of that leadership role and somebody that I think is going to be really, tasked with carrying this defense in a lot of ways. I think his potential impact this year on that side of the ball could be magnificent. And I think he's, obviously you got to, show it on the field with Blake Baker. And those two have certainly been, I think, locked in a room together for a better part of the offseason. But, we'll see kind of what happens there. But I like that Perkins is going. Nussmeier is a pro's pro at this point and makes no surprise that he's going. And then, Mason Taylor is as consistent of a talker as we've talked to, over the last couple of years. So, it makes sense that he's going as well.
Dads that have done a lot of media over the years, Nussmeier and Taylor, so the sons you would figure have got that figured out as well. Glenn, we appreciate your time, and we'll catch up next week.
All right. Thanks, Hunt. Appreciate it.
Glenn West, he's senior writer over at Go 24/7. He and Sonny Ship do a fantastic job of getting all your recruiting coverage, your team coverage. Glenn does football, basketball, baseball, does it all, and we appreciate him for joining us each and every Tuesday here on the Hunt Palmer Show. We're brought to you by Pluckers. We'll come back 30 minutes to go on a Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Duvall and his team, 30 years redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. Maybe you're looking for just a gorgeous, brand new, top-of-the-line bathroom. Maybe it's not that. It's safety in the bathroom that you're looking for. You got an aging loved one in your life that may have some hazardous situations arise in the bathroom because of wet floors. Go ahead and do what you can to mitigate that and keep that loved one in your life as safe as possible. No slip floors, walk-in tub, talking about guardrails near the tub and the shower areas, walk-in showers, showers with a bench. All those are helps and benefits to those that are aging and may have some issues getting around in the bathroom. David Duvall and his team do this kind of work all the time. If that sounds like something you've never considered, but now realize that it might be a great phone call to make, I challenge you to do that or visit them online at onebathandclosets.com. You can request that free consultation. Let David Duvall and his team know that you're interested in making that happen, and they'll get it done for you. And I can promise you this, they're going to do it right the first time and leave the competition behind. It's not going to be a situation where they take the job, get it done as quickly as possible, take your money, get to the next job. Something goes wrong 2 weeks later, they come back and fix it. No, that's not how it's going to work. They're going to do it right the first time and leave the competition behind. It's David Duvall and his team at One Bath and Closets. Check them out online, onebathandclosets.com.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
Farming is a way of life for us. It's not something we get up in the morning and dread going do. It's just something we go to bed at night looking forward to getting up to go do. John Deere equipment is what we as farmers strive to have. It's in your blood, it's in your veins. It's just a part of who you are. Green is what we want to be in. The other tractors were acquired to patch it up to get to where you want to be. Where we want to be is in John Deere. Flip the switch and learn more about what it means to be powered by sunshine at sunequip.com.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs. Even in the case of an after-hours emergency, the light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
Moscona inviting you to join us for Tuesday's AFR, powered by Sunshine, your hometown John Deere dealer in Louisiana. Sharie Dixon talks about a big recruiting weekend, and LSU commit Zion Williams stops by 3 to 6, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Coming July 15th, the 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge 2K a Day Summer Cash Giveaway brought to you by Citizens Bank and Trust. Stay tuned for details on the word of the day coming the entire week of July 15th and your chance to win extra cash for the summer.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Plucker's Wing Bar.
Couple of names to look out for in the transfer portal for LSU. I know that they are in the mix for both. I have no idea how far along or what the interest is on either side. But these are two names, they're pitchers, and LSU is in the mix. I would suggest in a group of 3 to 5 teams that could potentially land these guys. Keep in mind, there is no time frame of relevance right now. If you're in the transfer portal, you don't have to make a decision for a while. So you can take some visits, you can make some phone calls, you can solicit offers for NIL if you want. Like, that's allegedly against the rules, but we all know how the process works. Like, so I can't suggest, well, they got to get it done by July 15th or they got to get it done by the Major League. No, like, these guys are in the portal and they've got their pick of the litter at this point as they go through their process. But two guys I think that it's relevant to keep an eye on. And the first is UC San Diego right-handed pitcher Anthony Ianson. Koki Riley, who we had all baseball season on during Wednesday's shows, he reported that Anthony Ianson visited LSU over the weekend. Ianson's big fastball, just a tick over 3 with the ERA, 82 innings, 85 strikeouts, only 24 walks. Going to be on the collegiate national team. He's a big-time arm and a big-time prospect and a guy that LSU would very, very much like to get into the boat. We'll see. I know that he is looking at a lot of different places, and most of them are very high-profile college baseball destinations. UC San Diego, not one of those. So he's looking around, getting the red carpet treatment in a lot of these big-time places. Probably not something he went through a lot in high school, and I support him for doing all that, and we'll see if LSU can make their way in with Ianson, who's a right-handed pitcher. The other is a left-handed pitcher who you should be fairly familiar with if you pay attention to college baseball with any sort of regularity, and that's Cade Fisher from Florida. Cade Fisher was the next big thing for Florida baseball when he signed and entered his freshman year. As a freshman at Florida, he was very good. He saw a lot of time as a reliever. LSU saw him a couple of times up in Omaha. He pitched 5-ish innings there, gave up 8 hits and a run. He was really good in the game that LSU won in extra innings in game 1 on that Saturday of the championship series. Went 3 1/3 innings and only allowed 1 run, struck out 5. He came in the game that LSU won to win the championship after things had kind of gotten out of hand. But he's a left-hander. He throws pretty hard in the low 90s. He's got a good breaking ball. He, for whatever reason, couldn't get anybody out this year. I don't have a good explanation for that at all. He got knocked around the yard by a lot of teams in the SEC. Tennessee got him for 6 runs. Kentucky got him for 3 in an inning and a third, and he lost his job as an SEC starter and didn't go more than 2 2/3 innings the back half of the season at all. He did pitch pretty well against NC State in the Super. He didn't see any action saw NC State in Omaha is where they saw them. But he was not great this year and ended up posting an ERA that was north of 7 this year. So Fisher is a talent. He's 6'4", he's left-handed. He was the next big thing for Florida. It just didn't work this year. But his strikeout numbers were pretty good, 76 and 59 innings. His walk numbers weren't terrible. His batting average against was bad, and he gave up a lot of runs. So I don't know what the future holds for Cade Fisher. I know that he's an intriguing prospect that I wouldn't mind LSU taking a flyer on. It's not one of those deals where I'm looking at it as like a salary cap. Like, I don't know what the money situation is over there. I'm just looking at talent, and a left-hander with that kind of pedigree sounds good. Whether or not he can figure it out and be better as a junior than he was as a sophomore is to be determined. I'm not really sure. But these two guys are two guys to keep an eye on. Cade Fisher from Florida and Ianson from UC San Diego. We'll see if anything happens over the next 4 days here as we continue to kind of monitor things in the baseball transfer portal. But the big news of today was Daniel Dickinson, LSU, gets a commitment from the Utah Valley second baseman who is participating with Team USA and was in Cape Cod this summer and has been okay up on the Cape. But I think he's a big talent that LSU should be fired up to land. So our Tuesday show is brought to you by Plucker's Wing Bar. I will be there tonight for Sports Trivia, 8:30. Nicholson location. We'll have you out of there by 10 o'clock. Drink some cold beers, have some awesome wings, and win some gift cards with us. We always have a good time over there on Tuesdays. And Pluckers brings you our Tuesday shows each and every week. We'll take a time out. Come back with Take It or Leave It on The Hunt Palmer Show.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show.
You know, a lot of people have the same experience with physical therapy. They get hurt, go see the physician who says, hey, head over to physical therapy. Here's where you can go, and they'll take care of you. And then you go, and the physical therapist is not hands-on. Physical therapist is doing paperwork while you're supposed to be doing exercises. They're handling 4, 5, 6 people at a time. And it's just not a quality experience as you try to get back to your active self. If that's been your experience, I highly, highly recommend checking out Evolve Physical Therapy. Robbie Bolton has been at this for nearly 2 decades, and he is going to be as hands-on as any physical therapist as you've ever had. He's going to be right there for every exercise, every stretch, every massage, the cupping, the dry needling, isokinetic testing, joint and soft tissue manipulation. All that can be done over there at Evolve Physical Therapy. It is the physical therapy clinic in town. You can check them out online, evolvept.com. The location is right there on Starring near Highland Road. Whether you're a youth athlete or there's a youth athlete in your home, whether you're a 60-year-old that's trying to get back on the golf course, whether you've been in a car accident or had an injury or just slept wrong and can't get to feeling right, Evolve Physical Therapy can help you out. Check them out online, evolvept.com, or check them out at Starring near Highland Road. It's Evolve Physical Therapy.
Get the 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge app powered by Bayou Ford and tap the microphone icon to send us your thoughts in an audio message. Your message could be played on air during Off the Bench with Esther and T-Bob, The Hunt Palmer Show, and after further review with Matt Moscone.
When it comes to ending cancer, we push forward, always working together for you. That's why our cancer experts at Ochsner have clinically integrated with MD Anderson Cancer Center. This means advanced cancer care, including access to life-saving clinical trials and integrating care to treat the whole you. Introducing Ochsner MD Anderson Cancer Center. Long live you.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
At Relief Windows, we're more than windows. We're windows, doors, hardy plank, and vinyl siding. But our #1 product is always customer satisfaction. Visit us online at reliefwindows.com. Oh, by the way, we do shutters too.
Hey, it's Matt Moscone. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques. Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local. So call today at 293-0450 or lainsurance.net.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
Gulf Coast Bank and Trust is giving our customers the power to bank anywhere, anytime during this challenging event. And we're right there with you. Our mobile banking app is a...
Charles Hannigrove joins us for the Wednesday edition of Live at Lunch from Modesto. Burbank at Nicholson. Wes Reynolds from VEASAN joins us. We'll have our consensus golf picks live at lunch, 11 a.m. weekdays, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Parish Construction and Roofing brings you live coverage of the 2024 SEC Football Media Days, starting Monday, July 15th next week through Thursday, July 18th. Find highlights from the week on the 104.5 ESPN YouTube channel. Our coverage is also brought to you locally by Rev Business and Relief Windows.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Plucker's Wing Bar.
Beck, I have a trivia question for you.
Okay, is this going to be at Plucker's Trivia tonight?
It's not going to be at Plucker's Trivia tonight, but I just figured I'd put you on the spot. What conference is Utah in?
They are in the Big 10.
No, they're in the Big 12.
I was going to say that.
The reason I ask is I'm looking at Big 12 Media Days, and it's on the TV, and they're interviewing Kyle Whittingham about Cam Rising, and they've been in both of them have been 7 conferences since they started their time at Utah. That Kyle Whittingham is 20-something years, and Cam Rising is 7 years. But of course, Utah in the Big 12, as we all know, right there with Arizona, and of course Utah and West Virginia in the same conference. That makes a ton of sense. So it's they're doing it in Las Vegas, and I'm looking at the venue there, and that's where LSU will be very, very shortly at Allegiant Stadium out in Vegas. So just something that struck me. I'm like, man, Utah in the Big 12, that's not something I'd given a lot of thought to. But here we are, and they might win the Big 12 because they're usually pretty damn good. Let's play some Take It or Leave It.
I'll take it.
I
2
promise,
days in a row.
Yeah, it's not gonna be an every time. Maybe I should start doing it. I don't know. All right, first one here. Iowa State Representative J.D. Scholten formerly pitched in independent and European baseball leagues all over Europe, Belgium, the Netherlands, multiple different countries. Anyway, he's now a state representative, and yesterday he got called by the Sioux City Explorers, who are an independent team in Sioux City, and their manager called him, asked him just a few hours before game time if maybe he could come pitch for them. And Scholten proceeded to throw 6 2/3 innings, getting the win and quality start, only gave up 2 runs and struck out 2. By the way, threw 100 pitches. And the Explorers went on to win 11-2 against the Milwaukee Milkmen, which is a better name in my opinion.
Are they actually Milkmen? Because they can't hit a 44-year-old senator?
Apparently not. But either way, Scholten will reportedly pitch again Thursday afternoon, a couple days. Take it or leave it.
My spidey senses are up on this one because I've got a situation where you're telling me that an independent baseball team couldn't find anybody to pitch, so the manager said, let me call the state senator. And he came. That sounds like a publicity stunt.
You think?
That's got Ronnie Rance written all over it, Rougarou style. Next thing we know, we're gonna have Garrett Graves. We're gonna have Jeff Landry. We're gonna have somebody pitching for the Rougarou within the hour. Is what I would imagine. That's what this reeks of. I don't think this says a lot for the Milkmen, who were professional baseball players, although they're not affiliated, and they got a 44-year-old carving them up. I don't think that's good. So those guys might need to look into selling some insurance, might need to look into being a plumber, might need to look into being a talk radio personality, an accountant. I think it's time to put the baseball glove away, put the bat away for sure because you're not using it, and go ahead and pursue something else in life.
All right, moving on. Florida State QB DJ Uiagalelei was invited to ACC Media Days but declined, saying he felt it was important for players who were on last year's ACC championship team to participate. Take it or leave it.
I'll take it. I think that's good. I think it's probably overthinking the situation, but you're a new player that's trying to be the starting quarterback and kind of ingratiate yourself into the team very quickly when it's your third stop as a college quarterback, and this is helping him do that, I guess. So again, I think that it'd be fine if he wanted to go. I don't think anybody would be slighted by it, but I think this is just trying to endear himself to the locker room, and I think that's just fine.
All right, next one here. Our neighbors to the north, Canada, are playing Argentina in the Copa America semifinal tonight.
God.
The Maple Leafs will get the win. Take it or leave it.
Leave it. They play soccer.
They do. They're actually
and they're better than us.
In this tournament, they have progressed further than the U.S. have.
The Canucks.
Yeah.
This is an embarrassment.
It is.
I don't.
And you want to know something even worse is that their coach is actually he's American.
Well, hire him.
Well, that's the thing. The U.S. had a chance to hire him. He was one of the candidates before they hired the current coach, Greg Berhalter.
Well, hire him now.
Maybe they could. I don't know. He's at Canada now. He's probably going to be a little spiteful considering they passed over him last time.
Look,
but
man,
maybe he'll take it.
This is no time for spite. We're playing in the World Cup at home in 2 years. Like, that is as good an opportunity as you can get. And Canada stinks. You don't need to coach that team. They're not going to make the World Cup. We're in the World Cup already. It's your home country. You come to coach us. Is he a good coach?
Yeah, he is. Like so far, he's done pretty well. He actually coached the Premier League, which is the English soccer league. One of the top leagues in the
Premier
world.
League.
Yeah, the Premier League. Yes, he coached in that league for a bit, so he's had some pretty good experience as a coach.
Get him on the horn. Get this guy out of here that stinks and can't win a game in Copa America.
All right, last one. Hiking. Take it or leave it. I'm guessing you're gonna leave it.
I'm gonna leave it big time. Had a discussion via Instagram with a good buddy of mine who's at his sister's wedding in Canada. And
Speaking of Canada,
he was complaining about his wife's inability to go for a nice long hike today. She ended up handing him her backpack, and she complained the whole time. And I said, "Well, I'll be real honest with you. She did a lot better than I would have done because I would never have showed up. There is no shot I'm going hiking. Hiking is just a different term for walking where you're not supposed to walk. Walking down paths over rocks and the sticks and the trees, all to get a look at a mountain or a stream or something, forget it. No chance. You go to the beach, you get a cold beer, you go play golf. You don't go hiking. It's voluntary torture.
I can't say I am surprised by your take on hiking.
No hiking. I'm never going on a hike. Not one
I'm
hike.
not surprised at all by that.
Hiking. Go off some path so a snake can pop out and you lose your leg. That's a good plan. Get on the beach. Grab a pop. Put some tunes on. Don't sprain your ankle going down some mountain you're not supposed to be on. No hiking. Charlotte, I got you. I would have never gone on the hike. That's it for a Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. If you missed any of it, catch it on demand. 1045ESPN.com's on demand tab. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, wherever you're sound. Thanks to Glenn West and Sharie Aack for being flexible with us. Hope to see you tonight at Plucker's 8:30 Sports Trivia Nicholson location. If I don't see you then, I'll see you tomorrow. Same time, same place. Matt's going to drive you home. It's been the Hunt Palmer Show.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful communities.